if you remember last week's Shiloh, we had the couple where the wife unfortunately went off the derech. And the problem was like this. The problem is that she wanted to be buried in a non-Jewish cemetery, right? And the husband has a dilemma in front of him, is that in order to get her buried in a Jewish cemetery, he has to give up on his Yerusha, which was close to $4 million. So the question is, should he give up the money? Like we saw a similar shiloh by Sreifa, Rav Chaim Paskin for it was more like $5-6 million he had to give up the Yerusha from the father, or should he let her be buried in a non-Jewish cemetery and Shalom Al Yisrael? So that was the shiloh that we dealt with last week. And
the father and the wife may be different. We're saying Sreifa or
the father might be different. Well, Sreifa's first of all, Sreifa might be different because that's much more chamer. Maybe we'll see that next week. I found a true from the Chelkas Yaakov. It's very interesting. He's a Dan. Is it worse to be buried in a non-Jewish cemetery or to be nisraf? And we'll see. What is the answer to be buried in a non-Jewish cemetery? That's next week's topic. But Sreifa is quite chamor, although it's a nida. You're mavatala. Say a lot. Exactly what? Certainly for tches hamesim, if you're burned up, then that's a problem.
What happens? They can't get back.
Basically, yeah, you're finished.
But the loose bone doesn't burn up.
It's a good question. I was just thinking that myself. Anyway, but it seems it's so you'll just be your lose bone, basically.
A loser.
That's a real loser, right? Okay. So that was a shayla. Now, so this week I want to deal with a different shayla, right? Is that we learned that the chi of kavura is coming, right? Because he's Yerush's wife. So the question is, the Yerush's wife is a mishemedes, right? Is the Yerush's wife is a mishemedes? L'chayra, to answer that question, we have to deal with a different question, which is, in general, is there a Yerusha by a Meshumet, right? What is the din of a Meshumet? Is a Meshumet Yerush his father, and it's a father Yerush the Meshumet, right? It's really two different shaylas. So you saw the Gemara in Kedushin Daf Yerches talks about Esav, yeah? Esav is Yerush Moirish to his children, Esav's children. Was any Bali Tshuva over there?
Where?
Right? Any Bali Tshuva Esav? Any of them went over to Yaakov, became Eliphaz, he became Haredi? No, Timno, right. She wanted to. She wound up giving birth to Amalek. Yeah. Okay. Who that? Ishmael was yeah. The problem is like this. The problem is the Gemara says that Esav is marsh to his children. But who are Esav? Who was Esav's children? I don't know if there were any big tzaddikim over there. They were probably also but they were teenage in Ishba, right? Who told me that? Rosh Sternbach once told me about Yair Lapid, our current prime minister. He said, he's a teenage in Ishba. If your father was Tami Lapid, you probably would be less from than Yair Lapid. And I heard Tami Lapid once saying, don't take the children to Hebron. Take them to Herzl's grave, and you should be mishtachave on this holy saint. Herzl, maybe saint is a good word. In any way, so that's the question. In general, is there Yerusha by a Meshumet? That's question number one. And question number two is going to be, can we learn out from there to a wife, right? So this is a little bit confusing. There's a very important Mordechai, which was on the Mormakomos. And today, we were omen on a very, very important point, and I'm going to try to clarify that to the best of my ability. There's a big machlokas Rishonim in Yerusha between the Geonim and between the Rav, right? Is there Yerusha from a father to a Meshumet, right? Let's say the kid goes off the derech, right? The father dies. Does he get the Yerusha, right? So the Geonim say no. He doesn't get the Yerusha. That which Esav to his children, that's when the Meirish, right? There's a Yerush and a Meirish, right? If the father is Meshumet, why shouldn't the kids get it? It's l'chayra, right? But if the child is a Meshumet, right? So we understand maybe you shouldn't get it. And that's in fact what the Geonim say. Yeah, the Geonim say that if the son is a Meshumet, then he won't get the Yerusha. And why not? So comes along the Maram Yerenberg, he explains this. He says, Kach harinim min hashamayim. It's pretty good. Yeah, David, here. If you sanctify yourself enough, then they show you Torah from Shemaim. What does it mean? Whoever knows. Whoever doesn't know, doesn't.
One day.
There's a sefer called Shayas and Chuvas Ben Shemayim. You heard about it?
I heard.
There's a sefer called Yedidya. You know about the book Yedidya. So Yedidya had Nevuah's Katana. Right? I once had Nevuah Katana. I told you that.
No, what?
I had Nevuah Katana. My wife and I, we had a lot of Saras on our Shana Rishona. And I was learning Friday night with a big tzaddik. He was one of Rav Moshe Piro's big Talmidim. We came across this Gemara of Nevuah Katana. And I said, you know what? I'd really like to have a Nevuah Katana. Like maybe that would help me understand what's going on. So I went to sleep that night. I woke up with a Nevuah Katana. Right? When I woke up, the pasuk just like fell out of my lips. I never had it happen to me again. And it was Vahi B'Shur and Melech. So I went to ask Rav Fishman. I said, so what does this mean? He said, maybe it means to work on Malchus, Hashem's Malchus. Anyway, I thought about it myself. I looked up Rav Hirsch and it said, Yeshurun is from Klal Yisrael and they act with Yashras. They're called Yeshurun. So I wrote a book about integrity. That was my Nevuah Katana. Anyway. But the thing is like this. There was a Rishon, I don't remember his name, but he sent all these shilas to Shamayim. He would go to sleep with a shaila, put on his pillow or something. You want to look it up? Shilas and Children of Shamayim, who it is? Let's see, I can look it up. He would go to sleep at night and he would wake up and have a pasuk on his lips. And he would answer, it would be an answer to his chuvas. Let's see. Shut min Shamayim. Shilas and Children min Shamayim. So you want to know who is the author? God himself. No, it was Rav Jacob of Meros, France. He lived in the 12th century. He was a Baal Tosfos. He was one of the Baal Tosfos. Anyway, so perhaps that's what the Ram means here. It was shown to him in Ishmael. But he writes and actually it's Rabbeinu Gershom speaking. The Maharam is quoting Rabbeinu Gershom or Goyla, who's interesting because his wife, I think, was a Mishemedis. Yeah, his wife was a Mishemedis. Yeah, he sat Shiva on his child, I think. His wife was Mishemedis, and she took his child with him. Right? Shemeshumid ain't a Yorish as Aviv. Right? Kivan shishtamid nafik mekdusha demua. V'lo mikrizari. Tiksiv lios lechem lokim. V'lo zarech achrecha. Mishazar miuch Rav Yotz Mishumid she'ein zar miuch achrav. She'miyach achrecha Aviv. So I put on the Marokos, I think. This Maram, incredible idea here. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about the guy the woman who found out her husband is not Jewish, which is still pending, that Shaila. But we said that a person can become a goy. Yeah? That a person, there's such a thing as being mafkia Kedush Yisrael. And that's why one of the reasons why the Aseres HaShvatim, that was the Aguda, why the Aseres HaShvatim, they lost their Kedush Yisrael. And the Chazam Sofer, Paskins Aloch Lamaisa. You can take someone out of Kedush Yisrael. The Maram is saying that someone is a Meshumid, he's saying not complete Kedush Yisrael, but as far as Yerusha goes, he's not your child anymore. And the truth is, now when we learned Avelis, he sat Shiva on him, right? Because he lost his child, and now it makes a lot of sense. Ben Gershom sat Shiva on his child when he went with his wife, who was a Meshumid, because he's not his child anymore. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that is the pshat of the Goinim, Rabbeinu Gershom, and others, that there's no Yerusha by a David here. There's no Yerusha by a child who's not from him, right? So a person's son goes off to derech, the father dies, he's not Yerusha. Let's see the three kids. Not what?
That's what about Dafka Meshumah.
Not a teenage Nishma would be different, right? But
no, if someone goes off, he's then Meshumah.
Meshumah, okay, that's a question. Usually Meshumah means that he became baptized or something. Okay. In any event, so that's thing. Now it's interesting if you look at the Shutta Rosh. The Shutta Rosh brings from Rabbeinu Yehuda. Yeah, he brings Pesukim. This is they use all sorts of words. Yishmaelim, Machlip. He's called a Machlip. He traded religions, but you can't trade religions. If you're Jewish, then you stay that way, unless you lose it. But he brings Pesukim that he's not Yerush. So the Rosh said that it's, Rosh learned themselves in the Smach. The Pasha says that he's not your child anymore. I'm sure. I guess he come back. That would be interesting. What happens if he comes back? If he goes back to being your child. It's true, he does. Yeah, he has to go back to the mikvah. They have to shave their body, and they have to really magai.
It's not by Meshumid. It's not by someone stumbling over that.
It's Meshumid, right? That's true.
Religions.
Okay. Anyway, that's the shita of the Gonim. Comes along the Rav Yah. The Rav Yah argues on this, and this is all in the Mordechai that we brought over there. And he says, no, Kamosha Morish Labanim, Yerush as Aviv. Right? He's Yerush, that the Mumishum is Yerush. Just that Chazal made a kanas. Right? Chazal made a kanas. Why? Because, let's say the father has $10 million, We don't want that Jewish money to go to the Meshumit. Right? So, Lamaisa, he is Yerush, but we put it in like an escrow or something. We put it away, we're mafked by someone else, and we say, you're welcome to have this money, but first do tshuva. First come back to the fold. Now, the what's it called? The Rav Yah says that even according to the Gaonim, right? Even according to Gaonim, there's no reason why that the father should lose out over here. Right? Now, this is a little bit of a cheshbon, right? According to the Rav Yah, that this whole thing is a kanas, right? So the father, the son is not yours to father, but we can ask him. We say, "I'm not going to let you have this money, as long as you're acting like not in a Jewish way." But why should the father lose out? We're not going to kanas him, right? We're not going to kanas him, right? But according to the way that the Gaonim were learning, right, that he's not miyuchas achrav, so l'char it's two ways, right? If you're not my son, then I'm not your father, right? L'char, that's thing. The Rav Yah says differently. No, the Rav Yah says even according to the Gaonim, because he's learning it's a kanas, right? He's learning kanas. But the pashta seems to be that it's not a kanas. That according to the Gaonim, he's not miyuchas. He's not your son anymore, right? And that's why Ben Gershom, he said shiva on him. He lost his son. He's not his son. A Jewish child who becomes Meshumid is not the child of the father anymore, at least vis-a-vis Yerusha. Okay, so this is the machlokas, right? According to the Gaonim, it should be two ways, right? The father is not the son. He's not the son's father. He's not the father's son, right? And just like there's no Yerusha from the father to the Meshumid son, it shouldn't be if the son passed away, so the father shouldn't get the money, right? Mashenkin, according to the Rav Yah, it's just a kanas. So he kanas the son, but why should he kanas the father? Okay, that's as far as Yerusha, father and son goes. But what about husband to wife, right? So now, can your wife become not your miyuchas to anymore? What do you say?
I would think it should be the same, logically.
Yeah, that's what I might have thought also, but originally. But if you think about it, Lamaisa, the marriage relationship is different than a father-son, right? Because you never miyuchas to your wife, right?
What is yuchas?
Yuchas means that you're a descendant, right? Right. In other words, the relationship between husband and wife is called share. Share. She's share. How do you translate share in English? Share and share alike, right? You should always share with your wife. Spouse. It's a spouse relationship. It's not.
It depends on how they're relating.
You can't say she's not miyuchas after, right? A father, right? A son is not miyuchas to his father. If the son is not miyuchas to father, so the father's not miyuchas to son. They're strangers, right? Mashenkin, by the husband and wife, it's a question: is there still share, right?
So now, husband and wife, and there is.
Right. So if you saw that from the Otzar Post, we put from the Chosi and Shuas, the question that we asked last week, right? Maybe when a wife starts acting improperly, Mishumedis, right? So now the halacha is, we'll get to that, there's no ksuba by a Mishumedis. So if there's no ksuba, so maybe she shouldn't be chayving kfura, right? Since the whole chiyuv to bury a spouse, a wife, is because he's getting the ksuba, right? So maybe she should be chiyuv. And that's two stadim here in this Chosi and Shuas. One side is that there's no, it's not chayv, she's Mishumedis, and there's no ksuba somela. The other side is no. Lamaisi still gets something. The Nidonia is still going to get, right? The apartment and whatever came in from the Nidonia is to get. So he's still chayv. He still receives a ksuba. He's still chayv to bury her, right? So Lamaisa, there should still be there's still a chiyuv ksuba, but does he yarish her, right? The whole question here is, should he give up $4 million to bury his wife in Jewish cemetery. But in order to answer that question, is he giving up $4 million? Maybe it's not his money anyway, right? If a meshumid, if a husband is not Yerush, Ishto Meshumedis, what? What's that? What's the problem?
No, I go for the text that for the father's son.
Yaakov said it as a shaykh.
What?
Why? Why is it different?
What?
What's the difference here?
We can say she's Meshubit, so it's like she became a new person and now can take a second wife. Could she take a new husband if her husband's Meshamid? Because now she's not married to him? She's never
No, so we said it's only for Klapi Din Yerusha. Right? Other things is still your son. Right. Anyway, I'll go upon him. It seems like what? That was the Rush. That was what Rush said, but I don't believe that that's the case. I don't think so. What? I don't. I think that from the Goinim it's mashma that they hold Mikra Din. What? One second.
If you became a Shumin, then we take all his chosim of being a Jew. We don't take this away as chiyuvim of being a Yid. You're going to have been a guy should be still as a din of a Yid that is mechuyev to keep Shabbos.
It's only the Gabi Yerusha.
Or by the Goinim.
It sounds like God is disagreeing with you, Shlomo, because Kacharinim in Hashemayim Dashtamed Nafik Mikadusha Davua V'lo Mikrizarai. What?
Kedusha, what does that mean?
It means he lost his Kedusha Yisrael Gabi Yerusha. Now it's interesting because the Rush is a student and was the main Talmud of the Maharam, and the Rush says it's in the Gonim it's only an asmachta. I mean, maybe it's just quoting Rabbeinu Gershom, right? But the way the Rabbeinu Gershom is explaining this sheet of the Gonim, it sounds like he's not Jewish anymore. L'gavi Yerusha, right? So maybe we'll say, maybe we'll say the same thing. Maybe we'll say the same thing. Klapi, the husband-wife relationship, right? That when she's mishemedes, then Yerusha goes away. But the truth is that I think that's not true. If you saw here on the Marmakomos, what I brought from the Sefer HaPardis and Rashi says that she's not called Sher. Look at the Eishes Ishin Shtamed Kivan Shtamdan Shachsel Anafsha. She destroyed her neshama, right? And he's usher to be.
Oh, she's usher to him.
Right, she's usher to him.
In that case, I can hear
yeah.
Sharon, they can't live as husband and wife.
She has no ksuba. Yerusha, he's Yerush. Why? He says l'sher. She's still called Sher, even though she's usher to him. Kivan Shtamdan Nafik. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Take it back. No, she's not called Sher. Kivan Shtamdan Nafik Li Misher V'Liyos. She's not Sher anymore. She's not Sher. She can't. She's usher to him, and she can't. Right. She's not Sher. That's how Rashi is learning. Lamaisa, though, at the end of that Mordechai, which I didn't find the Makomos, but the Mordechai says in Rashi, Lo matzinu Shabbat l'Torah Yerusha min Rishoyim Yerusha le'esav nasatim chohartzir. Rashi learns like the Rav Yah, right? So Rashi learns in the husband-wife relationship, she's not called Sher, he won't be Yersher, but Klapi, the father to the son, he says he will be Yersh. So you see, it's two set in Brisker terminology. It's Tvei Dinim, right? That the husband is one din, and the father and son is a separate din, right? So Lamaisa im Kainam Advarim, so there's no connection whatsoever, right? There's no connection whatsoever. It could be the father, according to the Goyim, right? That the father is not yours to the son's not yours to the father, right? Could be, even though the rest seems to learn differently, but I don't think from the Rabbeinu Gershom it's not much like that. But Klapi, the wife and the husband, so even the wife is Mishamedis, but she could still be called Sher, right? You see Rashi, he says like this, Lagabi, the father and son, and God. So there's no raya from the Goyim that the husband shouldn't be yours to wife, right? So again, just to be Masakim, right? If it's a Kanas, right, says the Rav Yah, right? We Kanas the Meshumin himself or herself, we Kanas the Meshumin. The son doesn't get from the father, right? But copy the wife, right? Okay, the husband won't lose out. Right? And as far as the Gonim go, okay, the father's not yours to son, the son's not yours to father, but that's the father and son. But the wife, the husband. So it could be everybody holds except for Rashi, right? That's the husband will get the Yerusha, right? And that's the Maisa we paskin. The Ramah brings in Even Ezer and in Chosh Mishpat that from the Ramah and the Shulchan Aruch bring we paskin like the Rabbi. We paskin that a husband whose wife is mishtamid, then to get the Yerusha, right? To get the Yerusha. So if we go back to our original Shaila, Lamaisa, the family of the wife was saying that we only are willing to let you bury this woman in a Jewish cemetery if you give up Yerusha, which was close to $4 million, right? So now we're saying L'kuli Alma. There's no Klapi, the husband for sure gets the Yerusha, right? Maybe he should give up the Yerusha in order to bury her in a Jewish cemetery. So he said, first of all, we'll speak about that more next week. Why can't you bury someone in a Jew in a non-Jewish cemetery? Ein koven tzaddik le'yitzirasha, right? This woman is not the biggest tzaddik. That's number one, right? And number two, right? The husband is not required to give up his Yerusha to bury her, because it's not clear that we saw from the Choshen Yeshuas, it's not clear that he had Yerusha at all, right? It's not clear that he had a chiyuv. It's not clear that a chiyuv kfur at all, right? It's not clear that he had a chiyuv kfur at all, because it might be since she's mishtamid, he's not chayav to be kover anymore, right? It's machlokas in the achronim, right? Right. Okay. And what about the etzem chiyuv kfur by Russia? What did we say about that last week? Radvaz. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, very good. Now it's coming back to me. We said last week the main reason why you can't bury a Russia, why there's a chiyuv to bury a Russia, is because pagam mishpacha. But if they don't care, so that's not such a big pagam. So it seems like there's no reason why that the husband should give up the complete Yerusha to bury her in a Jewish cemetery. Again, if they're if they're children who are from here, and it's going to be a pagam to them, that would be a different child. There would be pagam mishpacha. In this case, where there were no children, then it would be different. Okay, so there's one more shaila. What?
He doesn't.
The Radvaz.
About the pagam, if they are in
the Radvaz says the whole reason shekovren oso b'kvarim mishum pagam mishpacha avaloy tzil tzadikim. Right? Ain't kovren tzadikim Russia. Right?
What reason there's no mishpacha to be pagam?
There's no mishpacha. Seemingly, it's not such a big problem. That's what he's saying is because of pagam mishpacha. That's what should come out. Yeah. If there's no pagam mishpacha, then seemingly there's no problem. Okay, I hear. Fine. We're not bothered so much by it. Okay. There's one more shaila left, which I hope to go into next week, right? Which is what happens in the reverse case. Yeah. In this case, the woman was a Russia, right? Husband wants to know should he bury his wife in the Jewish? Does he give up the Yerusha? Right. The question for next week is, and this food for thought, yeah, that there was a non-religious couple, and the wife started watching Shirim on the internet on Turning Time, right? And she became religious, right? Unfortunately, she was too young, and when the Rav went to arrange the Kvura, he realized that she's not Jewish. Moshe Sternbach told me a certain Tekuf in his life, he was in a certain country, and many of the Kedushans he was a Sadr, the Chassan or Kala weren't Jewish. Because a few generations back, there had been a lot of intermarriage, and the children had been Choser B'Tshuva, but they didn't realize that they're not Jewish, because it was the intermarriage, They had done conversions that were not valid. Anyway, so what happens if after Misa, the husband finds out that his wife is not Jewish at all? That's maybe a little bit worse on one hand, because at least the other one was Jewish.
It's not his wife.
Right? What's that?
It's not his wife.
It's not his wife. She's not Jewish. But on the other hand, according to Rav Noach Weinberg, she's his Rabbi Mupak. Yeah. she was machshir m'tshuva, you know, and if she's watching my shirim, then I would be. Okay.
Still not his wife.
Yeah, can you bury a righteous non-Jew in a Jewish cemetery?
Why would you think good?
What?
Why? Well, okay.
Well, there's certainly a lot of pagam. There's certainly a very great pagam mishpacha because the husband doesn't even know that she's not Jewish. Number one.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter for putting the guy in the Jewish cemetery. If you bury your dog in the Jewish cemetery, it's a very Jewish dog.
I know the Rav in Australia came and he said he made a bar mitzvah for a dog. A bar mitzvah. A bar mitzvah. Anyway, so that's food for thought. Tein l'chacham v'yachim oid, v'naban tapulas yichna.